Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some books that I think are great for my fellow thought daughters. Now you may be asking at this point, what is a thought daughter? Turns out a thought daughter is me. Thought daughter is a term that is going around TikTok right now, and it refers to a person who thinks a lot. Arguably maybe thinks too much, maybe overthinks at times, someone who may be a little bit anxious, a person who likes to analyze and pick apart movies or books or other media that they are consuming, and finally somebody who just wants to feel really deeply, wants to feel connected, but often feels misunderstood. That is a thought daughter. If you want more details, I will have some TikToks linked down below if you want to look more into this term. I, myself, think I'm a thought daughter. I do, in fact, overthink literally everything in my life, and I do also really like to read a lot and analyze all the little things in the books that I'm reading. So, I guess that's my pitch. That's my justification for making this video. Let's get into these books that I want to recommend to you today. Here are just a few things that I feel like make a good thought daughter book. Can I relate to the characters and the emotions that they're feeling in the book? Number 2, does this book just make me feel a lot? Whether or not I relate to the situations that are happening, does it make me feel a lot? That's number 2. Number 3, when I am already feeling overwhelmed and anxious and feeling too much myself, I want a book that will get me out of my head, that will sweep me away to another world so that I can escape my anxious thoughts. So, aka fantasy for me. 4, this kind of goes along with the whole fantasy thing, is if I am feeling extra anxious and I not only want to be swept into another world, but I also want something that's like, I don't need to stress about, I want a retelling. I'm going to read a book that is based on something else that I'm already familiar with so that I don't have to stress about how it's going to end. Those are some qualities that I was looking for when coming up with this list. Let's get into it. Number 1 on my list is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This book is about a girl who lives on another planet where the seas are made of spores, these little magical dust particles. And so she goes on an adventure at sea to save the boy she loves. That's what this book is about. This is kind of falls under the retelling category because it's loosely inspired by The Princess Bride. The plot isn't very similar, but the feel of it definitely is. It is a fantasy, so it also checks that box, and I just related to this book so much. I feel like I've changed a lot over the last few years, and a lot of it is just that the way I view the world and view myself in the world has changed a lot, and I feel like that's very similar to what happens in Tress over the course of this book. And so to read a book about another young woman going through a similar experience, internal experience, really helped me kind of understand what I am experiencing and thinking and feeling right now. You know what I mean? So I love Tress. It was my favorite book of last year. Moving on to books 2 and 3. This is a duology called The Monk and the Robot duology. This happens to be my favorite book of this year so far. This is made up of A Psalm for the Wild Built and A Prayer for the Crown Shy. This little series is about a monk who is trying to find their purpose, trying to find their place in the world, and they meet this robot who has a very clear purpose, but is trying to understand the world they live in and the people in it, understand everybody else, and trying to find how they fit in among everybody else, if that makes sense. This book is so cozy, so cute. I feel like there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of themes about like purpose. What is your purpose? That theme is something that I'm trying to figure out myself. Being in my 20s, I feel like being in your 20s is a lot of questioning who you are and what your purpose is and where you fit in the world. And so that I really related to. It just made me feel a lot. And also I feel like this kind of also relates to the fantasy thing because it is set in a world that's kind of like Howl's Moving Castle, the Ghibli movie, Studio Ghibli movie, where it's like this semi-futuristic, semi-fantasy world. It's kind of in between both, kind of steampunky almost world. So also kind of checks that fantasy box as well. Number 3, Lonely Castle in the Mirror. This book is about a young girl who's been bullied, and so she stops going to school because she's afraid to go to school. And one day she's sitting at home alone, and the mirror in her bedroom starts to glow, and a magical portal opens and leads her to this magical castle where she meets some other kids. They become friends and they are trying to work through this challenge to find a missing key to a locked, mysterious door. It is magical, it is fun, but also This book, the reason I think this is great for thought daughters is that it makes you feel. You feel a lot. You feel so... Because of what these kids are going through, I felt so much. That is an experience that I also had when I was in middle school, being bullied. And so I feel like this was like very cathartic. Is that the right word? I really related to what she was feeling and what she was going through. But also, like I said, there's a fantasy element to it. So it checks that box. Moving on. This is The Goose Girl. This was one of my favorite books growing up as a teenager. I've read it and reread it so many times. The cover has seen better days. Is a fairy tale retelling, so obviously meets that stipulation. It meets that, not requirement. It falls into that category, and it follows the Goose Girl fairy tale in which a princess is traveling to another kingdom to get married to the prince in the other kingdom, and the people that she's traveling with betray her, and so then she has to make her own way to the kingdom and find her own way to... Retelling, check. Fantasy, check. There is some magic in here. Certain characters in this world, in this story, can speak to different nature elements. And for me, I loved this book. This was one of my favorite books as a teenager. And I think part of why I loved it, besides the like romance and fairy tale aspect to it, is that I really related to the main character. First off, she's more shy and reserved, but over the course of the book, she becomes really confident. And she fends for herself, you know? And so I really respect and admire that about her. But also she's the oldest daughter, which I am too. And so there are lots of things like the pressure she feels as the oldest daughter to do everything right, to be perfect. As an oldest daughter myself, I have felt similar pressure throughout my life. And so I related to that. Next is The Starless Sea. I recently read this book. I love this book. This book is like Alice in Wonderland if Wonderland were a never-ending magical, mystical library filled with just magical books. So in this book, we follow Zachary. He's our Alice stand-in as he falls into this magical world of stories and books. For one thing, I relate to the main character and just that want to escape into other stories, other worlds. I get that. I feel that. I am that. I want that too. This world that he discovers is just very magical. There's a lot of whimsy and fairy tale elements to it. Just the descriptions of things just made me feel so inspired, and I loved that. And also, like I said, it's a different world. It's this whole world of books and stories and things, so it's kind of sort of fantasy at the same time. Next, I'm going to talk about Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. This is a literary fiction novel about two friends, and we're just watching their friendship from when they were children all the way up as they're adults, and all of the things that they do together as friends. They start a business when they're adults, their business struggles and like how that affects their friendship. And so it's really about friendship and connection and how much we need that as humans. This made me feel a lot. I felt all the ups and downs, all the struggles that can come along with friendship. I felt that and I loved that because it is so focused on the connection and like the things that are happening to them and how their emotions and the way they react to what's happening to them affects their friendship and things like that. Because it's so focused on those things, there's no way you can't feel some of the same emotions they're feeling as you read this book. So if you want to just feel, you just want to feel, this is a great book for that. It's going to make you happy, it's going to make you sad, it's going to make you frustrated, but it's such a good book for that. Moving on, I have two Greek mythology retelling recommendations, and they are Song of Achilles and Circe by Madeline Miller. If you like Greek mythology and you're looking for retellings, these are great books to go to. They are very popular. These are wonderful books. They are written very beautifully. The way they are written is very poetic, and it's going to get you to feel things. It's going to get you to feel things. Whether you like these books or not, you're going to feel some things. I didn't love these books, but I did feel a lot while reading these books. So take that or leave it, but there you go. I had to recommend them. They are some of the best retellings that are out there and popular right now. Moving on. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. This one is a fun one. It's about this young witch who has to teach these three little girls how to control their witch powers, their magic, And as she's teaching these little girls how to control their powers, she just falls in love with them. She falls in love with the people who are taking care of them. It's very found family, very cozy. And surprisingly enough, this one really hit me. I wasn't expecting to relate to this book as much as I did, but I did. The reason I related to this is because in this book, our main character is taught to live a certain way, and it's really strongly enforced as she's growing up. You have to live this way. Over the course of teaching these young girls and meeting these other people and falling in love with all these other characters that she meets, she finds that what she was taught her whole life is wrong. And so, yeah, I feel like I relate to that part. Being taught certain things your whole life, you think it's just like normal. And it might not even be inherently bad, the things that you're taught. It's just, it's not the only way. Let's say that. It's not the only way to live. Before the coffee gets cold, this is about a magical cafe where if you go get yourself a cup of coffee and sit at a particular table, you can go back in time and visit the past as long as you come back before your coffee gets cold. So this book is almost like a collection of short stories. Like each chapter is someone else's story of what happened to them when they went back in time. And I really like this one because it's all about the importance of human connection and loving other people and being kind to other people. And for that reason, like, it just makes you feel. That's why this is on here. Next, The Little Prince. Okay, this is for all of my anxious overthinking girlies, okay? But it's about a little prince who travels from his planet out in outer space, and he's traveling through space from planet to planet. And as he visits each planet, he learns things from the people he meets. And this is just a collection of the things that he learns. This one, I feel like this was just a really good reminder to me to slow down, to stop worrying, to stop overthinking literally everything. That's why this one's on here. It's a reminder to stop overthinking things. Not everything is as serious as you think it is. So calm down and stop and smell the roses. Next, As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. This book is kind of like The Book Thief, which is the next book I'm going to talk about. These two books both take place during a war. And so there's a lot of grief. There's a lot of sadness in these books, but at the same time, there's a lot of hope. And so really, you just get the full spectrum of emotion while reading both The Book Thief and As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. You just see how strong and resilient humans are, that even in the worst of times, like, there are still good people in the world that want to do good in the world. So those are As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow, which takes place in Syria among the Syrian Revolution, and The Book Thief, which takes place in Germany during World War II. All right. My last two books are both classics, and these books, and the main characters in these books are thought daughters. Number one is Jane Eyre. Jane, thought daughter all the way. She is constantly thinking, constantly trying to figure out what to do, what her place in the world is, has had a difficult past, she's had to go through a lot, but she is stronger for it. That's Jane from Jane Eyre. Classic number two, Sense and Sensibility. This is by my girl Jane Austen. Sense and Sensibility is primarily about two different sisters. This takes place after their father has died, and because of, the way things were back then, they're women, so they can't remain in their father's household. So the house, the land, everything goes to their father's male heir, and they have to they along with their younger sister and their mother have to go find somewhere else to live. And so this is about the two sisters, Marianne and Eleanor, and how they deal with that grief. Eleanor she is the sense in the title. She is very logical, very analytical, very practical, very, okay, what's the next step we need to take? Okay, she's like taking charge. She's trying one step at a time. Let's get things done. Whereas Marianne is sensibility, which in, Regency vernacular basically means she's very romantic. She just wants to feel all her feelings and just express it, just let out all those feelings. That's Marianne. And so we kind of see the juxtaposition between these two different ways of living, of feeling. And I feel like I am somewhere in the middle. I'm a combination of both Eleanor and Marianne. I am Eleanor. I am the oldest sister. I am trying to make things work. I'm trying to think practically of, okay, what's the next step? What do we do now? But at the same time, I have a lot of feelings. I have a lot of really strong feelings that I don't know what to do with, and sometimes I just need to let them out, you know? I just want to listen to some really sad music to help me feel my feelings. Or I feel like Eleanor and Marianne offer two different perspectives of what a thought daughter is. All right, those are all of my thought daughter books that I think are good for thought daughters to read. If you have any contributions to make to this discussion, if you have any recommendations of your own, please leave a comment below. I am so interested to see what you think. And if you've read any of these books, let me know what you liked or didn't like about these books. With all that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for listening to me ramble about books, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.